Alright, well, it's time for episode 4 of Dumb Installs. Really doesn't feel like that long ago that I did the first one, but this year's is going to be a little more low effort because I've been putting off making this video. So this is just going to kind of be thrown together, so sorry if this one's not as good as the other ones, but as usual, none of these pictures are mine. So if you see your picture in the video, let me know so I can leave credit, and if you see your picture and you don't want it in there, then let me know and we can take care of that as well. But I mean, it's really the same deal. You guys know the drill by now, so we'll just get started and enjoy. So this first one here, we got a Pro Max. So I don't know if this is somebody's attempt to uninstall the opener, or I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess it's possible that maybe it tried to lift the door with no springs and somehow it broke off of the front idler. I don't know what really what happened here, but it doesn't exactly look too good. Well, here we've got a 1345 with messed up chain, probably a broken off sprocket. If there's one thing I really hate doing, well, there's a lot of things I really hate doing, but one of them is untangling chains. I can tell you these are not real fun jobs to do. So I've actually never gotten to a job that the chain's been like this before. The one time it came close is when I replaced, when I took down my 3265 and replaced it with, I don't remember what I put in, but I got there, I could see the chain was not, I could see the chain was kind of all bunched up, and I was like, yeah, shoot, that's not going to be fun. But turns out the guy was actually decided to be nice and wrapped up the chain, and so that I didn't have to untangle it, so that was nice. But yeah, these kind of, I don't know, I just hate untangling chain. It just takes a long time, and yeah, get a little too greasy doing it. So yeah, there's kind of a lot wrong here as far as an eBay listing goes. That's not an 8587, and an 8587 is not a belt drive. So I mean, somebody buys that thinking they're getting an 8587, yeah, that wouldn't end well for the seller. So if somebody told me that this door could actually close fully, I would have a really hard time believing that, because that opener's got to be like maybe not 3 feet, like 2 feet above the door. Also looks like somebody broke off the release lever on the trolley. But I mean, don't put fans where your opener goes. Not that hard. And that door's not going to last either, I can tell you that. So here we got somebody that decided to add a beam right in the middle of the garage door, 2 inches above it. So I guess now you need a 0-inch low headroom. At least you've still got, you're able to mount the opener normally still. Well, here we've got an upside down Genie. Why they thought this was a good idea, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't know how you would set limits on that, because it's shoved right up against the ceiling, and I'm not really sure what this person's end goal was. Great backhang job too. We got a flag bracket with 0 screws in it, which, I mean, hopefully that's a pan door, because if that's a heavy door, I would assume that could pretty easily rip the tracks off the wall. I guess having the tracks back hung helps with that, but still, that's not really a good idea. So this is probably about the worst shredded belt I've ever seen, because there's no belt left. It's just a steel wire, and you can see that actually like is cutting a groove in the sprocket on the opener, which I've never seen that before, and I don't even know how that would happen. They must have tried running the opener with just the wire around the sprocket too many times. But that's kind of crazy. Okay, so we got a 2255 here, and if there's another thing that I really hate is when people run the backhangs through the drywall because then if you need to switch brands and redo the back hangs, that's not going to be easy. And we got a person here that decided to kind of decorate his opener a little bit, put some fancy accessories on it. So this one's not necessarily dumb, kind of is. It's more like kind of sacrilegious because you got a LiftMaster on a square rail. I guess it's possible it could have been somebody just bought the head off Home Depot and swapped it, but I really hope this wasn't a company that did this, because I mean, honestly, LiftMasters don't belong on square rails, and I know I've done it with the 8165, but that's because I had to. So, considering it's a LiftMaster, and I mean, if you see a LiftMaster, chances are it was professionally installed. Couldn't tell you why the company decided to do that. I guess maybe it's also could be one of those really cheap homeowners that didn't want to buy a whole new rail. Couldn't tell you. As much as I like whisper drives, they aren't worth $10 or $12 million. I mean, if I had that kind of money, I'd be buying stuff other than openers, I can tell you that. So this one's pretty stupid. You don't have a spot to mount your header bracket, so what are you going to do? Well, this person decided they were going to take two Genie door arms and bolt the header bracket to it. You know what else works really good? Actually better than that. Take a 2x4 and put it across the two studs. Boom, you got a solid mounting spot. Also, we've got a pan door with no strut, and I bet we can all guess how that's going to end at some point. So this is one of the ugliest doors I've ever seen. I mean, I don't even know why you'd put like half of the door with glass like that. I don't even think if they were all the same panel design that half glass would look good. I wonder who designed that. Yeah, we're just gonna take some conduit here. We're gonna run it on top of the angle for your opener. So that way, if you ever need to replace the opener, you'll have a nice, easy time getting that angle off of there. So here we got a craftsman, and this guy's got like he's got a chain holding it up to the ceiling, and then he's also got like a little piece of angle that runs back, and I'm not really sure what the chain's there for. Don't really need it, but at least you can see on the other side it's secured really well to that beam. I mean, could have just gotten some angle for the ceiling. I mean, you can put it on the beam, that's fine, but the chain is not really a good idea. So I guess some people just really like mounting random things to the bottom of their openers. As you can see, this 1265 has been kind of decorated a little bit with an air duct, and I don't know, I mean, you really didn't have a better spot to put that, did you? So you can tell this door has already probably started to fold. You can see somebody tried to make some homemade reinforcements, and they've got their arm on backwards, which, you know, obviously that's not how it works on a sectional door. And see, if there's another thing that I hate is when people put the door bracket above the strut. Or I hate it when people put the strut lower than the door bracket on the top section, because then it's still going to kind of rip and bend, and just put it on the very top. That's where it's supposed to go. Alright, so here we got a couple Genie screw drives. Good machines. First thing you'll notice, we got a pretty sloppy wiring job. iPhone probably should not be talking about that, because my wiring jobs aren't the greatest. But then in the second picture, this one's a little blurry, but you can see that nice backhang job that we got going on here. Looks pretty solid, and I'm sure, you know, if the door hit something and the force was maxed out, I'm sure that opener would stay up there pretty solid. So this one's pretty funny. This is just not how you hang an opener. This guy got one piece of angle, and then he's got in the middle, of where the opener goes, and then he's got two cheap little straps that go to the other side. And if we look at it from the back, you can see that's not exactly even. It would be kind of funny to see this thing run, because I'm sure that thing sways all over the place. So I feel like accelerators, I feel like Genie screwdrivers in general, but accelerators especially, are the openers that fall victim to stupid things like this. I mean, this is one of those things that you have to do, that you got to do what you got to do. This is probably before jack shafts, or maybe the guy's just cheap and he didn't want to buy a jack shaft and instead decided to cut through his big beam. But that's another thing I hate, is when builders decide to put a massive beam behind the garage door, and then you got to do stuff like this to get an opener to fit. I do remember that one of the houses on my street used to have there was some kind of liftmaster that was off on the very right side of the opener, outside the track, and he had this big door bracket set up that went all the way over to the center of the door, and it's because there was a beam right behind where the door is, which that opener's been replaced with an 8500W, and I've actually got a video there. I had to go fix that door, so you'll see that someday. But that's another thing that kind of gets on my nerves, is when builders put big beams right behind a door. So here we got a C273, probably a homeowner install. You can see the backing job isn't too bad. You can see the chain is pretty loose, so here the down limit's set a little too far, except it doesn't look like the rail's flexing, so chain's probably just way too loose. And you can see where he decided to hang the sensors, which, I mean, I won't say I haven't done that before, but I mean, I would never do that for somebody else's door. I've definitely done that with my own stuff. But if you're installing an opener for somebody else, please never do that. So again, I want to know how this person's planning on having to adjust the force, or program remotes, or even just take down the opener in general, because it looks like they installed the opener and then decided to build that around it. I hope they've got some way to access the back of that thing, but I mean, if I showed up to a job and the opener is installed like that, might be a little upcharge. So you gotta look a little close for this one. Looks normal at first until you look way up at the header, and you can see they decided to hang a Genie screwdriver backwards and put the opener at the header end and the rail at the opener end. Not sure why you'd do that. It's just extra work, honestly, and because then you also got to go back and switch the wires on the capacitor so that it runs backwards, and then I don't know why you do that. Plus, if you ever got to take the case off to fix something, well, you won't be able to. So this picture is from Luke Doorman. We got the back hangs on the G5000. It's just the cheap strapping that comes with openers, and the motor's crooked. It's not centered on the door, and I'm sure if you trip the force on that, it swings all over the place. But, you know, like I said, it's always seems to be Genie screwdrivers that I've got. If I go back and look, I'm sure the majority of the backing jobs, or at least a good amount of the stupid backing jobs, would be Genie screwdrivers. This one's not really a dumb install, it's just the picture's kind of stupid. You can tell this is really just probably some minimum wage worker that threw this together on their phone or something, because I don't know. I just think it mainly looks stupid that they've got an opener with no rail, but I don't know, just thought I'd throw this one in there. Sometimes I really think it should just be the installers that frame the opening on new construction, because you get stuff like this, where are you supposed to mount the opener? This one's probably a 10 by or 12 by something, and obviously, well, he's got the spring pad in the middle, which isn't a big deal, but you know, then it's where's the opener to go, which, I mean, as much as I wouldn't want to frame an opening, at least then I know that I'm going to be able to put everything where it's supposed to go and not have to rig up something stupid. We got a 1/3 horsepower Chamberlain here, just a light duty, so it's good for just those tiny little shed doors. You know, it'd be good for my mini door. 1/3 horsepower is all you really need. So here we got another believer in mounting your opener upside down and putting your sensors up by the opener. This time it actually looks like they had a reason to put it upside down so that it doesn't bump his, I don't know, project car, whatever that is down there. Who knows what that is, but again, that backhang job really isn't great. Maybe if they use solid angle, this would actually kind of make sense. But yeah, wouldn't trust that. That would instantly come down if I bought that house. So here we've got a spring that's snaking pretty badly. This usually happens, well, spring snaking could be from the spring being overstretched, which I don't think it's really, I don't even know if it's possible to overstretch a spring this much to where it snakes like that. But that can also happen if you put the spring backwards, so you put the right wound and left wound springs on the side they're not supposed to be on. Also looks like this spring has like just little screws holding it to the cone, or maybe those are going into the torsion bar, who knows. And it's also coming off the cone on one end. If you ever need a custom rail for your custom door that goes up and over and then goes sideways, I guess this will work. So I hope this homeowner realizes there's a point that it gets cheaper to just replace the spring than paying for who knows how many service calls that is to clamp your spring that many times. I know there used to be like a big shortage of springs and cones and stuff, but they definitely could not have been a back order for that long that you need to put that many clamps on your spring. So this obviously was before jack shafts, and nowadays if you did that with a brand new opener you'd look pretty stupid, because I mean, just buy a jack shaft. They're expensive, but it's the right way to do it. But I do actually think these are kind of cool. It'd be kind of cool to see one of these someday, but looks like this might have been professionally installed. That looks to be a one-piece rail, and they actually, seems like they did a pretty good job hooking that up to the door, because they got a torsion bar, looks like, going across to the center of the door, and then they got some bearing plates, which, I mean, if you're going to do an install like this, this is probably the way to do it, because you're getting it pulled in the middle of the door, and yeah, so it's cool, but nowadays I would not recommend doing that. So here we got a squirrel that somehow climbed up on top of the opener and then somehow managed to get underneath the belt, and then it got stuck there. Who knows how many years that's been there for. So this one's kind of interesting. You can see we got a C410, and for the backhang job, whoever installed this decided to use a couple straight arms, which, I mean, I'm not going to say using the straight arms like that is bad, but I don't know, it just looks kind of ridiculous. Also, you can see up at the front that is not quite centered on the door like it's supposed to be, and I'm not really 100% sure what they got going on for the door bracket there, because it looks like they've got a piece of angle, which, I mean, that's really what they should hook the door arm onto, but then they decided to bolt on the door bracket. Can't tell if there's a second bolt or not. It's kind of covered up by the arm, but you can see they got one on the left side. And to top this one off, you can see they decided they weren't going to take down the eyes from the original opener, which was a Wayne Dalton, and they decided to just put the eyes too high. Also, you can see they didn't add pigtails, so hopefully they never need any extra wire in the future. This one really isn't as much the installer's fault as it is just really bad placement of the light, although for all I know maybe the homeowner hung the light and was like, oh well, guess I gotta hang the opener this way. But really, it'd be nice if people would just stop putting stuff where the opener is supposed to go, because then you have to do like stuff like this, and I mean I'm surprised that holds at all, because it seems to me like it would just bend that angle, especially if, you know, if that, it looks like it's on a pan door, but I mean if that door's heavy enough, it seems like that would just rip it right out of the ceiling. So here we got yet another Genie screw drive, and this one's kind of blurry, so it's a little hard to tell what's going on here. You can see that the case looks like it's being pulled off the opener. It looks like they've got a bungee cord or something. I don't think that bungee cord is actually what's holding up the opener. It looks like they've got some angle going to the front. So I'm not really sure what the purpose of that bungee cord is, if it's maybe to keep the case from vibrating or what. I don't know. Maybe it is to hold it up. Who knows? But that looks, I mean, looks pretty stupid to me. And we'll add on to this with yet another Genie screw drive. You can see we just got all this random angle going all over the place. It's all the cheap flat stuff that you get with the in the box, and we've also got a pretty sloppy wiring job. I mean, I'm not one that's known to install Genie or to use the best back hangs for Genie screw drives, but at least my wiring jobs are better than that. I guess my back hang jobs are better than that too, because I mean it looks bad, but at least it stays and doesn't move much. So this website, I guess, is talking about benefits of LiftMaster openers. I think what they really need to talk about are those horrendous back hangs. I mean, nothing's straight, nothing's right there, nothing's straight. You can imagine the tracks are all crooked and the doors get all crooked when they go up. I mean, if those doors ever ran, I'd be surprised that they haven't broken, because I mean, I think even somebody that isn't good at installing doors, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I mean, even if you don't know the slightest bit on how to install a garage door, I'm pretty sure that I think anybody could do a better job than that, because that's just ridiculous. So first things first, we got a GX9000 here. That's my favorite opener. You can see it's on a one-piece door, no tracks, just got those huge springs on the side. And if you take a look, you can see that arm. I mean, I guess it could work with the as long as the door bracket's mounted on the top of the door, like not the inside face but the actual top edge of the door, it could work. But I can imagine, I mean, I can kind of imagine the arm coming up and hitting the rail when it's doing that, because then the door is gonna reach its high point, and I don't know. If that actually runs, I'd be surprised. We got a burned up overhead door Legacy, and I can't say I'm surprised that this thing still works. I mean, I guess a little bit. Looks like it was in a fire or something, but I mean, man, these Legacies are tanks. That's why I have my Pro Max. I mean, it's essentially the same opener. These are really good machines. So it seems like the reviews on for any online store seems to be a really good place for finding backhang jobs like we have on the 7055 here. Looks like this guy was just too lazy to find studs closer up and decided he was just going to use that cheap angle to move the opener farther up. And yeah, I mean, there's some people really should not be installing their own opener. If anybody can tell me where this opener says Genie on it, I don't know, I'll send you my 8557 if anybody can tell me where this thing says Genie on it. So while this one is stupid, it's also actually a pretty creative way of doing it, I guess, is what we're going to call it, is creative. So you can see that we've got obviously the cheap angle going back, which not the greatest stuff. But you can actually see that they used some Gen 1 sensor brackets. And I mean it works. It's an interesting idea, I'll give that to them. But for me, it's that cheap angle. I don't know, it's kind of smart, but wasn't very well executed. So here we've got one that's just plain stupid. This guy decided he wasn't gonna take the effort to buy the proper piece of angle to brace onto the finished ceiling. Instead, he's just gonna bend up these flat pieces, and I mean, I can't even really tell what's attached to where, but you can see it's kind of ripping out of the ceiling, and it's kind of bending around from being that way for all those years. So this one actually is really solid. This is one of the most over-engineered backhang jobs I've ever seen. This guy probably spent just as much money on angle as he did on the opener, and you can even see he's got a couple extra pieces going like 4 feet behind the opener. Keep that thing from swaying forward and backward. So this is probably one of those cases that someone was just way too cheap and decided, we don't need a trailer section, don't worry about it. First of all, why somebody built the garage like that, I couldn't tell you. But you can see, I mean, if this thing ever bypasses its down limit, you already know that's going to be a bad day. You're definitely going to get a cable. You're going to dump one of your cables, and yeah. And you can also see how that track is spaced and how they had to put all those washers in there, which, I mean, if you need to space a roller, that's a pretty good way to do it, but if you need that many washers, and I mean, even if that's the way you install the door brand new and you need that many washers, that's a sign that there's something wrong. So this is just one of those ghetto looking power wiring I've ever seen. Well, not ever, but it's one of them. It's just, I get it. I mean, I guess in some places you have to have it permanently wired. It's in some places, I guess that's code, but I don't know, this way just, I don't understand why you really need a light switch there, and I don't know. Plus, this opener really should have a kicker with how long those backhangs are, but it doesn't. So here we got a Rainer Ultra, pretty cool machine, but you can see the backhangs we got going on there. This is one I'm going to assume was professionally installed, and I don't know if it's something to do with the way that ceiling is, that they had to mount it to like those beams or something, which, if that's the case, then, I mean, there's still a better way. You could have still done better than that. I mean, it makes sense that you would kind of have to do something a little out of the ordinary in this case, but this is not the way I would do it. I'd probably put it across two beams. I'd drop probably 4 pieces onto the beams and run them across over top of the opener, and then drop 2 pieces down to the opener and add a kicker. I mean, I don't know if that makes really sense what I'm saying, but I'm saying there's a better way you could have done that. So the backhang job on this 600D just kind of looks like something that this guy just had no idea what he was doing when he hung his opener, and he just pulled together some scrap pieces of wood and whatnot. Maybe it's because maybe the wood's there because he had some trouble finding the rafters, because I mean, you can see a bunch of holes in the ceiling, which could have been attempts to find a rafter. Also, if we take a look a little bit closer up, you can see that those pieces of wood are actually ripping out of the ceiling, so it's possible that those pieces of wood aren't installed in a rafter either. So here we've got a pretty average square rail moment. I kind of wish I had another picture on how this opener was installed, because I don't know what could have caused the rail to bend like that. I mean, must have been installed really crooked or something, because I guess either that or the force was maxed out and the door came down on something really hard and it just completely bent the U-bracket to hell, but I'm not sure. So here we've got a Craftsman chain drive that the person decided to use the cheap angle to drop the cheap angle to actually hang the opener, and then use good angle for the kickers, which he decided he needed 3 kickers, and decided that he didn't need to trim any of them. So I guess watch your head. This is one of those situations where you just gotta drop some back hangs and angle them forward or angle them backward, because you really don't have to do that. I mean, you can tell the way the rafters are running is parallel to the rail because of how that outlet is mounted. I mean, what I would do in this case, I'd just take some angle, I'd put it in front of the outlet as close to the front of the opener as I can get, and then angle the back hangs just to the front mounting point on the opener. Here's another Chamberlain with the C450 that is the exact same case. At least this guy used good angle iron for it, and this one looks like it'd be even easier to just drop. Just drop some angle and just angle the back hangs until you reach the front mounting point on the opener. So this one looks like we've got an 84505 probably, and it's just completely missing the side door. I mean, it's a LiftMaster. I mean, it doesn't really surprise me, because LiftMaster's just not that good anymore. But if anything good comes out of this, I mean, we know how those plastic doors like to buzz, so I mean, that probably made the opener quieter at least. So you might need to look a little bit close on this one, but if you take a look up on the header, you can see we got another person who decided he was too good for sensors and didn't need them, so just stuck them up on the header. Again, if you do it on your own stuff, I guess you do you, but please don't do this if you install an opener for someone else. Well, my best guess is that we don't have a strut on the top panel, and just the fact that it's a 9100 and those doors are just inherently piles of garbage. It doesn't look like the opener was installed too high, but my guess, the door probably came down on something, and I guess the opener somehow didn't detect it and just completely folded that door in half. So if you put a strut on it, probably would have held up. Who knows? But I mean, even a pan door without a strut would have held up better than this thing would. And we got another Genie screw drive with kind of ridiculous back hangs. But again, I've said this already and I'm going to say it again. I hate it when people put the angle up inside the ceiling through the drywall, because then that makes it pretty much impossible to get up there and redo the back hangs if you ever, if you install a different brand or whatever the case might be. Because then you'll have to punch new holes, you'll have to patch holes, and just don't do openers like that. It might look a little cleaner, but it's not going to be easy for the next guy that has to work on the opener, or I guess replace the opener in this case. So this Chamberlain here is being held up with some cheap angle that's bent up and crappily screwed into the drywall. But as you can see, that angle doesn't quite reach the opener, so instead we're using some bell wire to hold the opener in place, which it kind of looks like that wire is just taped up to the angle. And we can also see, well, it might be a little hard to tell in the picture, but the opener's not exactly on center with the door. You kind of missed it a little bit. And we got another Genie screw drive here, just held up with a few blocks of wood because that rafter was too far back. This case, what I would have done, you can see you got a rafter farther up front, just put 2 pieces of angle over top of those that reaches all the way across, and then drop a couple pieces down to the opener. So this has got to be one of the lowest effort hang jobs I've ever seen. Also, they're using an extension cord, but not as big a deal as those back hangs. They were too short, so decided to put a couple pieces of chamberlain angle at the top. And you can see this guy really didn't care to make them straight at all. I can imagine, at least it has a kicker, and that probably helps a little bit from swaying side to side, but I could still imagine this one sways some. To add on to this, this opener is a LiftMaster, and you can see we got a company sticker on the bottom. Looks like this thing was professionally installed, so I guess don't use that company. So it looks like those springs were in the way of where the header bracket was supposed to go, and at least that guy decided he wasn't going to try to mount the opener too high above the door, but instead what he decided to do, he's going to make this ghetto mounting pad that is essentially falling apart and ripping apart because none of those screws are in all the way. So here we have a LiftMaster that on one side it's being held up by an S-hook, and on the other side it's being held up with a zip tie. So if we take a look at this picture that's a little more zoomed out, we can see how this one looks kind of more like it's you can see that random piece of angle that's just hanging there. You can see a hole in the ceiling where that angle ends. So it looks like whoever originally installed this drilled into that, or drilled into the ceiling and installed the angle and then bent it to hang the opener with. It's a LiftMaster, so I'm assuming that must have been done by a company. I guess it's possible it ripped out because it wasn't installed into a rafters, or I'm not sure, but I mean, I'd rather, maybe I don't know if I'd rather have an opener held up by S-hooks or an opener that is not screwed into drywall, or that is just screwed into drywall. Probably S-hooks, honestly, as long as whatever the S-hook is attached, as long as the S-hook is somehow hooked onto the rafters or whatever. I'd rather have that than just some angle screwed into drywall. And some customers just don't know how to figure out the simplest things. You know, is it like, can't adjust the sensors, can't get them to work. So somehow you realized that before you tried using the opener, before you tried, I mean, you couldn't tell the opener wasn't running when you tried to use it, you couldn't tell the wall button wasn't powered on. I don't know. So here we got a pan door that's pretty much completely falling apart. I'm not sure if this would have been an attempt to open a locked door, or maybe it was an attempt to open a door with a broken spring, or I'm not really 100% sure. But those styles are just completely ripping away from the face, the outside of the panels. You can see that door bracket is mounted halfway down the top panel, which is not where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be as close to the top as you can get it. And you can see we also don't have a strut, which, I mean, kind of need that, especially on a pan door. So here we've got another case of very over-engineered back hangs that someone probably spent just as much money on angle as they did on the opener. The back hangs are done well, but they're done well 3 different times for some reason. It's a pretty high ceiling, but you don't need 3 things of angle to be able to hold that one up. And actually I got a picture of another one here, and this one there's only 2 of them, but again, you really only need 1. They're well done, but you just got to do it 1 time. Don't waste money on extra angle like that. So here we got a belt that you can see is dry rotting and crumbling apart, but you can also see that it's somehow managed to flip itself around, so the smooth side is on the sprocket and the rib side's facing away. I mean, for all I know, maybe that's how the customer put it together originally. Who knows? But I don't know how that could have happened. How the belt could have just flipped around, because there's a sprocket cover on there. So I don't know. That was a little strange. So somebody here got creative and designed the patent pending ex-torsion spring. I'm not sure why they ended up trying to do this. I don't even know how they rigged that up. How they rigged up that pulley on the end there. Looks like they've got something that goes inside the spring. I don't know. But I can imagine this door is pretty hot because torsion springs do not really stretch out. They're not meant to stretch out that far at all, unlike extension springs. So we got a few things wrong here. First of all, yes, that arm is obviously upside down. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows how you're supposed to do the arm on a sectional door. The door bracket does look to be mounted a little bit low. Probably a little lower than I would have put it. And again, I'll say it again, I hate it when people put the struts underneath the door bracket. The strut really belongs on the very top of the door, so that actually, because you know, it'll brace the section better that way, because then the door can still kind of bend around and rip at the very top. And if you look close up by the trolley, you can see we've got like a LiftMaster release handle hitting the limit switch, because somebody had to replace the limit switch and they ended up with a chain glide limit switch instead of a screwdriver one. The chain glide limits are a little bit smaller, so that's a little interesting too. I can imagine this entire door is pretty crooked, because yes, the spring line's obviously crooked, but it looks like it pretty well levels out toward when you get towards the right side. It bows upward a little bit again towards the right, but I feel like the entire left side of the door, tracks and bearing plates and everything, I feel like those might be mounted slightly higher than they are on the right side, and I can only imagine how bad this door runs. So at least this one is screwed in on two sides, but I can't imagine that there's no rafter before that beam drops down. At least the door is a 9100 and it's light as a feather, so it's probably not going to come crashing down because of how those back hangs are. Yeah, we left you room to work. We made you a little alley. This is not a garage I'd want to work in. Hopefully nobody ever has to do a door or an opener change on that. You can see this one's got a broken spring, which I'm assuming somebody loosened the screws in that spring and slid it over, but because I can't imagine somebody would actually stretch the spring that far to where it breaks and that's where it ends up. But you can also see they've got kind of an interesting machine. It's one of those white Genie screwdrivers. I don't remember. They had a name for those, but I don't remember what it is, but that is the kind I'm still looking for. Alright, so there you have it. That is episode 4 of Dumb Installs. So, thanks for watching. And again, if you see your picture and you want it out, let me know and we'll take care of that. And if you see your picture, even if you don't want it out, let me know if it's yours and I'll leave you some credit. But thanks everybody for a great year. I don't know, it was a busier year for me. Made a lot of videos and did a lot more swaps this year, and I mean, got plenty more to come next year. So thanks for everybody that supports the channel. Thanks for everyone that, I mean, even if you just watch the videos, but if you like, subscribe or whatever, just thanks everyone for all the support, and hopefully we can have another good year.